Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Q&A. I have 3 questions that I want to answer for you. The first question had to do with the lesson that I taught on the Mosaic covenant, in which in Exodus 19, God offers the Israelites a grant covenant, and then we see that they reject it in Deuteronomy. Moses becomes the representative, and then you see a kinship covenant, played out. The giving of the 10 Commandments is a kinship covenant. That's how we know that it's a kinship ceremony. So the question was, when God offered this grant covenant, he said, if you obey my covenant, and she asked, I thought grant covenants were unconditional. So, yes, grant covenants are unconditional. Now, up until this point, in Exodus 19, there was only one covenant given to the nation of Israel through one man, and that was Abraham, the Abrahamic covenant. That was the only covenant, other than, there was the Adamic and the Noahic covenant, but that was for the earth and mankind. This one was given to a particular person and nation. So it's not like God was offering them a new grant covenant. It's that it was a restating or re-agreeing of the grant covenant that already existed. So this is very similar to, like, we're under the new covenant, new and a better covenant through Jesus Christ. It would be very similar to us today rejecting this covenant and not receiving the benefits of this covenant, or not believing, right? Because righteousness is of faith. It takes believing to receive the inheritance. Jesus doesn't have to die on the cross again to cut a new covenant. It's a covenant that is already in place. It's never changing. It's not up to you. It was completely up to God. But not everybody receives it. And so that's what was happening in this story here, where God was restating the covenant, and he said, if you obey my covenant. To obey means to listen to or to live under. So the Israelites had to receive the covenant or the benefits of the covenant. So actually that covenant actually never went away. It's still going on today. And God didn't, it never went away. But the problem is it was veiled because of the Mosaic covenant. So all they could inherit the blessing of that covenant as long as they obeyed the Mosaic covenant while that covenant was in place. All right, question number 2 had to do with why was it that under the offerings we had very specific male bulls and goats, and some were specific offerings of female? Why is it that there were some male, some female? What does that mean? What does that represent? It depended on the offering and the offerer. So the one particular offering that was very specific that it was male was the burnt offering. The burnt offering, remember, is a picture of Jesus. And because it's a picture of Jesus, it's a picture of the all-encompassing sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. It's everything about his sacrifice that, I won't repeat everything because I'll just be repeating the last lesson. But that's what it signifies. So a male bull or goat, especially a bull, represented strength. It represented labor. It represented headship, leadership. And so it had to be a male ox or bull or goat, whatever, because it was a picture of Jesus and his all-encompassing sacrifice. The sin, and also remember, the burnt offering, the offerer was also called a worshiper, and it was an ascending offering. It was a sweet smelling aroma to God. And the offerer offered an unblemished animal, and so it's a picture of identification. The offerer identified with the perfection of the sacrifice. So under the sin offering, however, that one could be male, but it was specific as to the offerer who could offer these things. So like a priest offered a male bull, the leader, male leader offered a male goat or lamb, and then everybody else could offer female. It was specific that they offered a female sacrifice. So why that? Okay, well, first of all, male goats and lambs, they were not as plentiful as females because they were the breeding, animal, and so they were more costly. Whereas the female lambs and goats, they were more plentiful. So it had to do with accessibility. And so God was basically making offerings as accessible as possible by telling everybody else that they can offer a female. And then remember that particular offering, that was not a sweet smelling aroma because it was mixed in with the dung when it was burnt, and because it represents our stinky sin. And that one is not identification. It has to do with like forgiveness. And so the receiver was receiving the cleanliness from that offering. They were being cleansed, basically. All right, last question had to do with the Levites entering into the holy place and Holy of Holies when it was moving day. And she asked, wouldn't it have been terrifying for the Levites to, see the glory of God, and wouldn't that have killed them, basically? Yes, if they didn't obey the rules of and the order that God had told them, in which they were supposed to remove those elements. So the Levites were the movers, right? But the order was, it was priests first, Aaron and his sons. They were the first to go in, and they were the ones that removed the veil, and they also covered all of the furniture, so that by the time the Levites went in to move the furniture, they were fully covered. So they didn't actually see any of those elements. So all they did was move. So it wouldn't have been terrifying if they followed the order. So as long as they did that, they were good. So that answers those 3 questions for this week. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments under our app that we are using for those who are following along as part of our church community. And if you're just happen to be along on this ride with us, I'm glad you're here. You can leave your comments in the YouTube comment section, and I will look at those and answer those next week. You'll have a great week. I will be back again in a few days to cover part 2 of the Mosaic Covenant, and that will also cover all of Deuteronomy. Y'all have a great week.